My name is Simone Graziani, and I'm hosting a webinar series, and we're up to webinar number 4, where to start when supporting someone with vision loss. So today's topic will delve into the motivations for creating a guide, highlighting the importance of empowering volunteers with the knowledge and skills to provide meaningful support to older people living with vision loss. As I said, my name's Simone Graziani. I'll be the host of this series today, the last of our 4-part webinar series, and I am a senior wellbeing officer at Vision Australia. Today, my guest is Bashir. Bashir, are you there?
Hi, Simone. Yes, I'm here.
Oh, hi, Bashir. We're already live, so it's great to see you on board today. Before we start, I just want to ask you a little bit about yourself, if you wouldn't mind telling the listeners a little bit about yourself, please.
Sure. Thanks, Simone. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Bashir Ibrahim, as Simone mentioned. I'm an orientation mobility specialist by profession, but have done many roles over the many years that I've worked in the field. So I've been working in the field of blindness and low vision for over 39 years. So that's, yeah, you could say I'm sort of getting the hang of it now. So there you go. So, my expertise is in, again, orientation, mobility, rehabilitation, disability studies, amongst other things, and also working with communities and groups in third world developing nations, and all things O&M. So where we can improve and assist and help others, and that's part of the experience that I have in Timor-Leste, South Africa.
Perfect. For those people that don't actually know what O&M or orientation and mobility specialists do you want to give a quick summary? Is that okay?
Yep, sure. Orientation mobility specialists, like our other therapists, work with an individual to look at their goals. How you get around, what comfort you have, what your goals are in terms of what you would like to be able to do, what you used to do, what is stopping you from doing what you would like to achieve, but how you're actually managing that. So everyone has different stages of development in terms of levels of confidence and need and so on. So orientation mobility specialists will work with an individual to coach and help work out a plan of how you would like to get around, best possible options. But it's also about your development as well. It's about how you feel and how you're going to move through your life stages. So whether you're a little baby, an infant, right through to 95 plus. So what you've seen, what you will see, and where you want to go and along that journey. But remember, it's lifelong learning. So we always keep learning. Hopefully we keep learning and we develop our skills and confidence. So most people think orientation mobility, white cane, but we're going to be talking much more about what orientation mobility is. And the white cane, the long white cane, is only one small part of the equation.
Perfect. So why was it, I guess the first question for today is, why was the guide created and how did it help volunteers and people supporting someone with vision loss make a positive impact on the lives of older people who are blind or have low vision?
Sure. Greeting and guiding is a range of skills, and it's about interacting with individuals on an even keel. It's about appropriate contact. It's about modeling. It's about how people would like to interact with others, and we'll be getting into, I think, a little later about the levels of vision impairment, blindness and low vision, those sort of aspects. But when you're living with less vision than someone else, there are different needs that people do have, and so communicating, body language, facial expressions can sometimes be missing. So, you will miss out all those subtle clues maybe, but voice, tone, intonation, all those things can also be a window to how the person who you're interacting with is feeling and how comfortable they are with you and you with them as well. So, it's about the combination of the guide being a template, but also again, it's a guide in terms of the basics to remind you and maybe develop your own personal communication skills when you do encounter a situation where someone else may benefit from your assistance. So as volunteers are crucial to our work, but also the lives of people who we work with everywhere in the world. So when we talk about in the guide, we have a series of skills called Sighted Guide. Well, I think we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about that, Simone. But
Yeah, definitely.
They're about appropriate ways to interact with individuals, again, with confidence, dignity, respect. We're modeling those behaviors as well, so that what we do and how we interact with our clients, family, friends, and so on is a very important thing to meet all those goals of, again, dignity and honour and all those sort of things. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Great answer. And for all those people that are joining us, if you do have any questions for Bashir along the way, feel free to write them in the group chat or raise your hand. We can't actually get you to speak because you've been muted, but we can certainly read out your questions and explore the answers there. So the next question is, what are the main differences between blindness, low vision, and dual sensory loss? And how do these conditions affect someone's ability to navigate their environment?
Sure. So when we think about blindness as a term, right, it's an overarching broad term. However, when we go into specifics, I'll define some of those things for you so that your thinking is about those terms. So when we think about yourself, when you hear the term blind, what do you think? So most people think, oh, can't see anything.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
However, the term blindness encompasses a spectrum. So if you imagine a rainbow or a spectrum from right to left of the screen, blindness is part of that spectrum from normal vision to low vision to near normal or actually light perception, hand movements, and then nothing. So when you're totally blind, that means that you've got no vision at all, so that you don't see black on white either, light or dark. Does that make sense? Because you think about your own perception. So total blindness as opposed to low vision and the severe levels, hand movement, wave hands,
I read
all those sort of things. Right?
Sorry, I thought you'd
That's
finished
okay.
there. Yeah, I've read the statistics, and I think out of all the people that are blind or have low vision, I think it's a staggering 300,000 have low vision versus a lot less that are actually totally blind. So there's more people with low vision than people that are actually blind.
Correct. So when we talk about functionality, right? So you've got clinical, when you're getting your eyes tested, measured, and it's really important to see. There's two things that are measured when we're talking about vision. One is central vision. What do you see when you look straight ahead? A clear detail, the screen, you're looking at our faces on the screen, whatever writing's there, as well as the controls and things like that. When you're reading a book, watching TV, talking to someone, you're looking at their face. But then that's your acuity, central visual acuity. Your peripheral vision, though, is a separate but connected part of vision. So all that, you think of it as a donut, right? Krispy Kreme, whatever donut you fancy there, right around that ring is the donut of peripheral vision, right, left, but don't forget up and down as well. Right? So the field and various eye conditions will affect field, others will affect central vision in the center, others will affect both. Right? So when you look at the context of, and I think we're going to be talking about some of the specific eye conditions as well, it gives you an idea of peripheral vision, central vision loss, or a little bit of both. And so low vision encompasses someone who functionally, they have some sight to read, do various tasks. Some people may have really, really good central distance vision. They can see things a mile away, but they're looking through a tunnel and trying to find that center spot is quite challenging. And others may have no central vision, poor central vision, but peripheral vision may still be intact in some form or another. So, how we use our vision, I'll give you a quick example. How do we read? We're conditioned to read paper in front of us
Mhm.
left to right in English. Yeah, other languages right to left, yeah, but left to right in English. And we read across the page and then one line, one line, one line, and so on.
Mm.
You know, who's to stop you from turning the page up and reading up and down if you've got peripheral vision? So there's different ways that we can use what vision we have maybe to problem solve and work out different ways of doing things and using what vision you have. When we talk about someone who's blind, we talk about severe low vision, where operations, surgery, corrective spectacles, equipment
Yeah.
can no longer assist them to use what they've got left. So that's where Zoom, VoiceOver, the VoiceOver and screen reading software comes in. Okay, and then dual sensory loss. When we talk about some people with the conditions that we'll probably talk about a little later, but some people may have a dual sensory loss for vision and also hearing. So that has implications with orientation mobility, how you get around, what do you listen to for traffic and directions and cues, and you know, how you move through the environment, how confidently you do that.
Yeah, that would be very challenging, I would presume.
Yeah, it is. It is. So you know, again, some people have a gradual vision hearing loss. Others may have a very rapid in some conditions. Okay, so the adjustment period due to a whole lot of regions may be extremely short in terms of the the impact, as opposed to over many years. And sometimes in some conditions, people actually don't even know you've got a vision impairment because it's just something that they compensate and they're using their vision effectively until something untoward happens and they realize, oh, well, I missed that, or I missed that step or something like that, or if they're driving, then there's other implications there. Yeah.
Mm. Now we have a question from Marianne Pushin. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Marianne. She said she missed the beginning of our conversation. What is the guide that was mentioned?
We're talking about the volunteer guide, correct? The
Yeah, I
Vision
presume
Australia
so.
volunteer guide. So, it's a series of information, but also skills that people can guide their learning in terms of how to support someone who's blind or has low vision. Particularly when we're talking about this webinar, we're talking about people who are volunteering, with Vision Australia, or in some sort of capacity to assist people who are blind or have vision. So the guide is about giving you some strategies, helping you with your confidence, and that idea of so one of the things is understanding vision impairment and blindness, the needs of our clients, the type of work we do, and how we can support and how we use and work with volunteers and clients and family members to assist people at different times in their lives, whether it's a daily basis, weekly basis, or it could be quarterly, or for specific events like our recreation groups or the orientation mobility travel days and things like that. Or it might be that you're volunteering in a particular social or support group, or as a guide or a driver. So so there's a whole different levels and roles that volunteers play with the organisation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I guess the guide we're referring to is the volunteer guide that Bashir was talking about. It lists, I guess it's for people that are working with people who have who are blind or have low vision, and it talks about the different types of eye conditions, which we'll go through, how to guide someone with vision loss. And I understand we do have a Vision Australia guiding document that we can send out to anyone, which I've sent out to a number of my clients. I actually sent one out this morning to a client who gets guided by a friend or family member and wasn't sure that there was a particular way to guide someone. Do you want to talk us a little bit through that, Bashir, like how you guide someone appropriately?
So it's either called human guide or sighted guide. So in this case, it's you or I guiding someone through an environment. But how people want to be guided, think about yourself. How do you like to be guided? How would you, when you go to somewhere new, you're on holiday, or you're looking for a destination or something that's around, or you want information, how would you interact with someone who you're asking for help with? One is knowing the right people to ask help for and from, But in this case, the sighted guide is a range of skills and techniques that we use for people to be able to walk with you or me in a safe, efficient, confident, but also, an appropriate manner. So, we don't push someone at the shoulders from behind and things like that. It's about, again, the dignity, and it's about offering the first thing is that verbal consent, saying, "Oh, hi Simone, it's Bashir. How are you? I'm with Vision Australia. Would you like some assistance?" Right. So if I was offering Simone and she was vision impaired, I say, "Would you like some assistance?" And if she says yes, then I say, "Well, how best would you like to be guided?" Sometimes people don't know the guiding principles, so that's a different story, as opposed to, let's presume that the person in the event and in the guiding role that you're doing has had some training in sighted guide. So Simone would tell me, "Yes, I'd like to take your arm," or some people will say, "No, I'll follow you if you don't mind. So don't walk too fast." Yeah. And then the verbal communication is part of that strategy. And so some people with a seeing eye dog might say, "Yes, I'd like some help to get to, the vision store from the main entrance." And you say, "Yep, would you like to take my arm?" And they say, I'll follow you," because the dogs are trained to follow with the follow command, so they might follow me. But all the while along, the first thing is the consent. So it's about offering, "Would you like some assistance?" And if the individual says, "Yes, please," and you say, "Oh, well, how would you like to be guided?" And then we go through the sequence. So it's about the grip and where you stand. So generally, you'll be standing and holding the person's arm, or they'll be holding your arm, sorry, as the guide, and the person will be half a pace behind you. So yeah, we go through, you think of a coffee cup. So you're holding their arm or they're holding your arm. But if I'm being guided by Simone, I've got to get my spatial awareness right there, Simone. But it's like I'm holding her arm like a coffee cup, so that
Bashir, sorry, if you wouldn't mind, I'm just going to interrupt you there because I am struggling to hear you. And Sally has also said on the group chat she's struggling to hear you as well. So yeah, I'm really straining to hear you. So yeah,
all
you were
right,
talking
how's
about
that? How's that a bit better?
yeah, a bit
The
better.
microphone's
Yeah.
just adjusted. Okay, so I'm talking about greeting and guiding, and how we walk with someone, or someone is walking with you as a volunteer. They may be holding your arm, yeah. And the reason why we say, "and they hold your arm," is about that feeling of independence, but also that feeling of comfort, because they have control then. If I've got someone and grab their arm, then I've really got them, and I'm guiding them, but the wrong way around, because now I'm holding onto them and they can't let go. Yeah. Whereas if they hold your arm, and if they're uncomfortable or they're not happy about it, then they can let go and it's their choice. Does that make sense? So it's about that choice of being guided in that particular way. If you're not following, if you're not using other visual cues and things like that. But so if someone chooses to take your arm, then they're holding your arm and they can let go whenever they want. But the key is to keep talking, not incessantly, but just describe things around and check in with the person. How's this pace? Is this too fast, too slow? About right. And then describe things as you go, because that also helps people to build up their memory of where they're going. And if it's a frequent place that you're going to be going to, it helps build up that mental map of the environment. But then we also talk about the obvious visual cues that you're picking up, and just giving people an idea. Oh, we're coming up to some stairs. They go up, they go down. Yeah, and there's a technique to go up and down stairs with the individual. There's also a technique as you're walking up and down a ramp, but giving people a warning about what's coming up ahead. Yes, it's smooth, it's spongy. We're going to walk off the footpath onto grass. And when you're giving directions, it's right to left rather than over here a bit, over there a bit. Yeah. So right and left, it's a little bit to the right, it's a little bit to the left. Well, it's right or left. So generally it's almost 90 degrees unless you're curving around. Yeah. So a bit more precise in your language. Right? So less is more, because you have to explain a huge amount of verbal information. You can do that in some basic descriptive terms, like we're about to turn right, heading straight along the corridor, and directly in front of us is an elevator. Yeah.
And I
You're being
guess that
very
takes,
precise.
I mean, I've done it myself and I am sighted. So I'd never guided anybody before. And when I go to the office and there are people that, you know, would benefit from being guided, they've taught me how to do it basically. So
Yeah.
if in doubt, you can always ask the individual how they best like to be guided and you follow their lead. And at first you feel a little bit funny because you've never, it's like anything, if you've never done it before, it is a bit, I guess, daunting. But if, I guess, put yourself in their shoes and think, how would you like to be guided if you were them? Basically, you'd like choice, wouldn't you, really? Choice and control. So you need to ask them what they'd like, and then they'll teach you how to do it. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. It's like anything in life.
Sure. And one of the big things with our program volunteer training is that, you know, going through an induction is really important because it just sets the scene for you, and then you build on that. So that, you know, that practice is key. It's about making sure that, you know, again, you're comfortable because you have to be comfortable. One of the things that I'll stress is that, you know, make sure you breathe. Just breathe, relax, because if you're uncomfortable, then the person's going to pick it up and they're not going to be as confident, right? So you have to be confident as well. You know, so offering your arm, would you like to take my arm, which side they prefer to hold. You know, if someone's using a cane, they're most likely going to hold your right arm because they'll be on your right hand side, so they can still use their cane just to get and confirm the verbal stuff that you tell them. Because you say, oh, there's a stairs coming up and they go down, they can use the cane tip to just find the edge. Yeah, if you haven't said, oh, it's about 1 metre or 2 metres away, and they can just verify and confirm that. And it's more reassuring as well. Right? You know, going through narrow spaces, up and down stairs, elevators, travelators, escalators, all these things, seating, you know, a part of the suite of techniques, how to take someone up to a bench and sit them down comfortably. We know you don't have to push them into the seat. Most people you can guide them right up to the seat and describe it's a 2-seater, 3-seater at the front, the back. You know, it's got armrests and so on, high back, low back. Once you get them there, the individual can most likely, in most cases, sit down themselves. They just need to know where the chair is, and then they can, you know, control their spatial movements.
Exactly. And I guess it's important to let them know if it's an office chair and has wheels, it might be movable chair. So keeping
Correct.
into consideration those types of things as well.
So giving warning, but holding the back of the chair, things like that are important. If it's in public places, like a bench in the park or at the bus station or transit centre or airport, or thing, you know, taking someone up to a seat and so on, there may be other people around. So let them know, look, there are a lot of people around, or no, the bench is empty, we've got it all free. And so that people know that they're, you know, they're going to be close proximity with someone else if they haven't figured that out. Yeah, especially when it's busy. So big thing is communication, talking to, you know, the individual and seeing what they need. Safety is the other one. You know, we're walking through, most likely you're going to be going into an unfamiliar area where they've never been or you've never been. So it's about you both being safe and comfortable in those environments, right? Sometimes it's also about taking someone to like a new area, giving some orientation and a clue about the area that you're entering or you're going into, and be systematic. Yeah, the main entrance point, describe in a clockwise way or anti-clockwise way. You know what is around the perimeter, then what in the grid pattern, what's in the centre, to give the individual an idea about what the layout is as well. Yeah.
And would you use I've heard people talk about using a clock. So at 9 o'clock, there's a bench, or at 2 o'clock there. Do you use that for orientation and mobility?
Yeah, well, again, the context is really important. If you're talking about meals, like or a dining table, like a cafe restaurant, the clock face is really good in terms of on the plate. You know, using 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock. You know, traditionally in the old style meals, the meat was at 6 o'clock, the mashed potatoes at 3 o'clock, and then the peas are at 7 o'clock, so you can push the peas on the mashed potatoes, then the steak, and then it's all together. So there's a systematic way of moving around, right? on the table, right? You come to a restaurant, is it a round table? Is it a square table? And then what's in the center of the table? So, you know, describe, there's a vase, there's a serviette holder, salt and pepper, you know, in the center, and quite often there's a little flower or something in a little vase in the middle, right? So sometimes the easiest way is, would you, you know, you could say to the person, would you mind if I just took your hand and just showed them where everything is? Or you can describe it if they've got some low vision and already picked up that there's something on the table. So using the clock face as well in the center of the table can do that. And that's really handy to know if there's a carafe of water or something that if you inadvertently put your hands on the table, then you might spill something. So one of the things with going out in public places and restaurants and things is that some people avoid that because they don't want to embarrass themselves. They feel self-conscious. And so it's about helping people, encouraging them to get out and about and be comfortable with that space and where they're at and their skill level as they get more confident to re-engage and do the things they used to do. Get out and be in the community, enjoy yourself. Yeah?
That's so true. Kathy Horner has said, there is also the issue of having a physical disability that can have massive implications on blindness, spatial awareness, and learning issues. They're just to name a few.
Yeah, true. You know, again, all our clients are, you know, people we work with are individuals. You know, they may have different needs according to the different circumstances. However, we're talking about the general guiding principles.
Yes.
We do make certain adaptations in terms of an individual's specific needs as well. So that's where that person-centered approach comes in. Whilst we have a template and a guide, it's again, it's a starting point for you. Then we develop with Vision Australia staff or whoever your coordinator or whoever you're working with to then look at individual circumstances. Some people have cerebral palsy as well as vision impairment and who are blind. So, you know, we would take into account different mobility techniques and things like that as well as equipment, but also time to get and do things as well, and you know, frequent rests, you know, these sort of things. But remember, it's also about the mental effort. You know, when you're mobilising, you're walking around as sighted people, you think about all the information you're taking in, and you know, we have that ability to see certain things and preview. But when you think about having no vision, your modalities, your hearing, your touch, your smell, your taste, right? So there's an element of extra load on your cognitive processes, right? So getting tired, concentrating, all these things can add up in terms of the individual's comfort and so on. So some people want to have time out and relax, others can go a higher tolerance, but then at the end of the day, once you get home, you're in your favourite chair, you go, oh, wow, that was a busy one. And you have a breather. So this is about managing your comfort according to your specific physical, mental, and experiential knowledge. Yeah.
Perfect. So we've talked a little bit about communicating. So what are the most effective ways to communicate naturally and respectfully to someone who is blind or has low vision?
Yeah, look, one of the things is if you're not sure, just ask the individual. Yeah. Oh, yeah. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? Can I help you? What would you like help with? You know, when you talk about go back to mealtime, some people really would like assistance with some things like cutting up steak or something that's really hard to manage. So rather than diving in there and just cutting everything up, you might just say, look, do you need a hand cutting up the steak, or are you okay? And just checking in. So, oh no, that's okay. It might be a good idea if it's a bit more practical. And so you're giving the individual a choice, but you're offering. It's like offering to be a guide. Sometimes people will say, I know, I'm fine, but thanks for offering. So, you know, it's about making that that offer, and then go see where that goes. And in the right way, if you're confident, the individual's confident, then you can do something great.
And I guess it's all in the way you ask as well. So, you know, obviously if you ask politely, people are going to be more open to, you know, receiving your help. So
and it's also yeah, absolutely. But it's also if you don't want the help, it's responding politely to say no thanks, but thank you for asking.
Yeah.
So that's a PR activity if you have low vision you would like. So again, it's about also, people say, oh, well, can I say look and see and things like that? Yeah, well, yes, you can. It's about using the language we have in an appropriate way. All right. So we use one of our clients that I've worked with for many years. She'll say to me, "Oh, see you later." Well, yep, see you tomorrow. Yep. And that's English language. That's the way we talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
Exactly.
not in a negative way. It's a positive way because it's about, yep, I'll catch you tomorrow. Yeah. So, again, use those terms. If you think someone's about to walk into something and you've got a bit of a distance between you, rather than say, best thing to say is just stop so that it's a halt, right? Rather than trying to describe something in that same word. So the one word can indicate, right, you need to stop, and then you can explain why when you get back up to them, okay? Even when they're holding their arms, individuals holding their arm, you might say, oh, we're going to have to stop, or we're going to have to turn through and there's construction work just about to start on the right-hand side. So remember, we use the rights and lefts, because sometimes people will want to know what's around. And so if there's noises, untoward noises or regular noises, what they're for, because then it adds context to that, right?
And speaking of safety, how can someone, create a safe and accessible environment for people with vision loss, both indoors and outdoors?
Well, when one of the things is to be aware of the environment. So as a guide, be aware of where you're walking to and in, right? If there's excessive noise, what's the noise from? So that you can either move away from that noise and find an alternative path, so it's less stressful for individuals. But it's also better to communicate and so on. And if you're in a quieter zone, you can't get quiet all the time in a busy city or busy environment, but you can manage that. But telling people what the noise is about is
Sorry, I can't hear you again, Bashir. Can you say that again?
So letting people know about where there are hazards and excessive noise, is really important, so that you can put a context to what that is. Is it one-off, or is it constant? If there's a service station or there's plant and machinery that is regular, we quite often use at shopping centres. We use the air conditioning units where the really loud noise comes from as cues, landmarks, because they don't turn those air conditioning units off, and so you've always got at particular junctions in that facility. The other one is where you have handrails. Please encourage people to use the handrails when you go up and down stairs, because that's what they're for. But you're also to the left as you go up, and as you come down, you're also to the left. And so that creates a traffic flow. So it's like the road rules. In Australia, we keep to the left. Okay? If you go to America, if you're guiding someone in America, just reverse it, okay? Because they drive on the right hand, on the other side, the right hand side of the road, whereas we're on the left. So getting used to, and if you're working with someone from Europe or Canada or America, and you're guiding them, you're inadvertently going to help them to readjust, because we look to the right, left, right, whereas in those countries they look left, right, left. So it's about, when you're even guiding someone across the road, helping them to work that out a little bit, so it's safer, and they get it into their mental map and their repertoire and comfort zone as well. So there's some of the little things about safety. Again, chairs in an environment, chairs are tucked under. They're fully under the table or against the wall, but they're not ajar or in the middle of the walkway and things like that. Doors always closed, always open, fully closed or fully open. So in between is not good. Right?
That's a really good point.
Yep. And so the other one is low-hanging branches, things like that. Yeah. So remember, don't forget, if you're shorter than the person you're guiding, don't just look at your clearance. Make sure you're watching for their clearance as well. Okay. And so that's a really important part. And when you're taking someone around an obstacle, you straighten up and then you continue, and you let them know that, oh, we're past the obstacle. It's all clear now, and it's more reassuring. But also why you're doing the here as well is important. There's a whole bunch of wheelie bins and directly in front of us and they're all over the ground. So let's move to the left to get around them. Okay.
Mm.
So
I had a
there's little
client who
things. Yeah.
was getting orientation and mobility training in a local shopping centre, and there was the escalators, but underneath the escalators you could actually walk. And so obviously that's a huge hazard for someone with vision loss. So she was trained to what to look out for and how to know when that was above her. So yeah, it's a tricky one, that one.
Yeah, it is. It is. And generally in a public place, there should be some treatments done to make that less of an obstacle for everybody. Because you'll notice that some of those underlying stairs, believe it, have hanging baskets with flowers or plants, or there's a rail so that people don't walk under. And so that's an immediate hazard for a lot of people, not just people with low vision, or no vision.
Yeah.
For older individuals, it's also important to have a bit of a look at their environment if you're going to their home and things, rugs and things that are a trip hazard can sometimes be an issue. And even in our offices and things like that, they're pretty clear, and we have good lines of travel and accessible corridors, and it's about maintaining those, because sometimes people do visit and others have prams and things like that, or shopping trolleys, and so it's about just being aware of where they're located. And again, in places we can control, like our environments and home environments, it's about consistency as well, putting things where they should be. Sometimes it's learning how to clear your environment as well, so that it's more manageable, right?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to talk to you about some advice I guess I give my clients, because this comes up a lot. A lot of clients don't feel they're ready for a white cane because they feel you have to be blind to have a white cane. And the main issue they have is crossing roads. And I talk to them about the fact that the cane's foldable. You can just use it just for crossing roads if that's what you feel comfortable with. Because with all these electric cars that you can't hear as well as other cars, it's really important, I guess, when crossing the road to be extra safe, and having that cane demonstrates to the drivers, well, this person has low vision, I better slow down. And a lot of my clients have used that in those particular circumstances and felt like they're a lot safer when crossing the road. Can you speak to that?
Sure. In the literature, there are 24 main, and I'm not going to go through all 24, but there are 24 identified in all the literature that are the top priority. The first 4 relate to orientation and mobility. And so that is bumping into things, falling down, stairs, steps, escalators, travelators, getting lost, and the 4th one, crossing roads. So the top 4, all right? So the top 4 in the literature that's identified by users and people with vision impairment who are blind. So that's where part of where we focus on is, one, there are many different types of canes, and in fact, not everyone uses a cane or a C9 dog, right? So you've got to understand the context of those. They're a long white cane and a C9 dog are primary mobility aids. Therefore, identification to let others know that you've got a vision impairment, especially in airports, transit centres, buses, trains, shopping centres. Because if you were just an everyday Joe Blow and no one knows you're vision impaired, so when the alarm goes off, or they expect people to move in a certain direction because the alarm's on and whatever, then they're going to expect you to be reading the signs and looking and doing everything that the rest of the population is doing. Having some sort of identification actually lets others help you in a positive way and a more appropriate way and respectful way, rather than assuming that you can read all the signs and see the warning lights and directions and things. So it gives you that acknowledgement, but it's also that awareness for others to assist you. So that's identification, right? So that's one aspect. The other one is a very important one, is safety. So falling down steps, stairs, bumping into things, depending on which eye condition we're talking about. There are areas that an individual might be requiring help with. So one of the things in the years that I've been working is that people say, "Oh, I look down all the time. I've got a sore neck, and I keep bumping into things." Well, if you're going to look down all the time, you're going to more likely bump into things because you're not looking ahead as well, right? So we all look down because that's the natural instinct, and that's appropriate, because check, and then head up. to look ahead and listen and look and use the other senses in order to navigate and find your way landmark. Even if you've got no vision, then it's about using your hearing and other senses, yeah, your awareness, spatial awareness, as well as you can, right? And so by using a long cane, we can sometimes help to relieve the need to look down all the time.
Yeah.
And what is it that you want to going to walk on? Is it flat? Is it smooth? Is it rough? The sound of the tip, but also continuous contact will give you a texture. It slopes right, it slopes left, forward, up. And so remember when you're crossing the road, does everyone recognize next time you're at the curb, have a think about as you cross the road, does the road go up slightly and then level off and then taper down to the other side? That's called a camber. In some environments, it's dead flat because there's no rain. In other areas, the camber increases in steepness because of the drainage for the road and into the gutter. And so they're things that can catch people by surprise. You take a step off and all of a sudden, oh, the road's a lot earlier than I thought because the camber is steeper. And so having the cane to preview before you take that first step can be very useful in terms of keeping your balance, but reassured and a secure footfall. And so the techniques that we use are to preview the area that's coming in front of you that you're just directly going to step on. And so that technique of touch technique or continuous contact sweeps the area and really briefly with the long cane. As your right foot goes forward, you sweep to the left, shoulder width. Then as your left foot goes forward, you sweep to the right. And that's in conjunction with each step that's going to come next. Okay, and so your cane's actually going to contact or preview the area you're next going to step with that foot, right? So there is an art and a science to it, and there's a technique. Like anything, you think about, playing golf, if you think about table tennis, chess, knitting, crochet. I can give you, Simone, I can give you a ball of yarn and 2 knitting needles, or you can give me those, and I wouldn't have a clue how to knit a vest, right? But other people, in a day, they've done half a jumper, and I'm thinking that's awesome. But when you know the skills, when you know your goal, when you know those things, the techniques, and the task becomes simpler, and then you can concentrate on other things like enjoying the walk around, listening, looking, smelling, the coffee shop, favorite rose or flourish, all those things, even the unpleasant places. Like the service station, you can hear, smell certain things, the diesel, or whatever. These are cues that you can use if they're reliable, give you those identifiers. But like you said, there are many different types of canes. The identification cane is just used at those times when you're feeling a bit more, oh, I need to just, it's getting crowded, or I'm waiting for the bus or the train. Take your ID cane out and have it available, then the staff can see you and then offer you help. Because if you're standing at a bus stop, what's the dollar room for a bus stop? You stand there, what the drivers expect you to hail.
Wave.
Yeah, and hail the bus. Now, if you can't see the number, or it's hard because it's a moving vehicle to track and scan and locate the number, you either hail everything that's big and see how you go, or you have some sort of identification and a couple of other strategies that we do teach people, like the public transport apps and things like that. But that's a good first step in terms of identifying. If you're waiting at the stop, you're near the J-pole, and the driver will see you for that particular stop. So hopefully stop and then verify with them. You can even use the ID cane just to check the height of the step. Is it a high step up? If it's a low floor bus and they drop it down, good. Sometimes they don't, then you can just check, grab the handrail, sweep, and then clear. Right? With the long cane, it gives you the best of both identification, plus you can check and verify it on the ground, the nature of what you're going to step into a little bit more accurately than relying on an ID cane. Because once you start using the ID cane more to verify what's there, you really need to graduate to a long cane. Okay. Other people use the electronic canes, the WeWalk Smart Cane. It's a GPS. It's got connects to an app for travel and all those sort of things. The Ultra Cane and the Mini Guide, but then others use the Seeing Eye Dog as well. So there's different levels of mobility aids depending on your lifestyle, your ability, and what it is that you're really looking for. But we say start at the beginning, have a conversation, get and talk to us, see what you're comfortable with doing. And one thing I could say is that don't always think about what other people are thinking, because what you're thinking, they're thinking about you is probably not really what they're thinking about you, right?
Yeah, it's
So
so
we
true
make stuff
because,
up.
yeah,
Right? So don't
Yeah.
be so self-conscious, because you will find 9 times out of 10, people will surprise you more often than not, because
Yeah.
often you
it's
help.
so true. I had a client that didn't want to get a cane training and didn't want to wear a badge. And then I said, well, why don't you just try wearing the I have low vision badge and only wear it when you go to the supermarket, or only wear it and just do a little experiment and see how you feel about that. Was that a good interaction? Was that a bad interaction? Did it make it easier for you? Did it make it harder? So it's all about trying these things. And I think trying is the key word there. But like you said, a lot of people are worried about what people think. And I found that nearly all of my clients that have then linked in with an orientation and mobility specialist, they found so much value in it, because you don't just go out there once, you go out there quite a bit, depending on the client, obviously, and the client's needs. But for the clients that require a lot of support, I had a 80-something-year-old client whose wife was still working, and he wanted to go to the local shops, and he was a bit unsure of himself. And now he can go to the local shops and he can do that all independently, go up, order his coffee, chat to the staff in the coffee shop. And he found that people were a lot more understanding of him, and people would seek him out and actually come and start talking to him about his cane. And he just loved it, just opened up his world. He had all these new interactions that he previously hadn't had. And then he started feeling so confident that he said, oh, I think I want to go back to I think it was the War Memorial Club, where he could catch up with the Vietnam veterans that he went to war with. So the orientation and mobility specialist taught him how to get on the bus, how to catch the bus. And he was in his 80s, and he did it. She came with him the first few times, and then she followed him in the car to make sure he got there when he went by himself. And now he's just said his whole world has completely opened up to him just because he had an orientation and mobility appointment.
And look, there's a couple of other aspects to it. If again, most of the people we work with have degenerative eye conditions, so the conditions are unfortunately going to become less distinct or worsen, right, in terms of level of vision. So sometimes people come to us and they say, what can I do? Because I know it's getting worse, right?
Yeah.
So, well, there's a whole lot of stuff we can do. Well, why don't we look at a preparation program? Teach you a range of skills, techniques, and then you've got something embedded that you can come back to if your vision does get worse, or your hearing, and so on. So people are planning and preparing. So, for instance, night travel. We have people with RP, retinitis pigmentosa, who have a lot of trouble at night, more so than generally during the day, but they don't go out at night. Individuals, no, not going out at night, haven't for years. Well, would you like to, and do you need to? Well, I do, because I'm not going socially and things like that, or I decline invitations and things to go out and meet friends. So it's about, well, how can we regain that confidence and look at some strategies to build on those strengths? But it's like anything. It's like I use that analogy of the sweater, didn't I? The knitting needles and the ball of yarn. Learn the techniques and the strategies, then we can move forward with application to travel routes, add road crossings, add the bus. So your foundations always strengthen the goal, the journey towards the goals and achieving those particular tasks. When you run a marathon, go and do training. You don't just run into a marathon and do the full 42K. What you do is you do each week, a couple of times a week, you build. And it's like the gym. You learn a good technique, good form. You've got to practice as well, right? Because
so true.
All of this stuff is about practice.
Yeah, it's so true. And what are the practical ways to assist someone with vision loss in organising their personal space to maintain their own independence?
Again, ask the individual how they organise their space, because they've already organised it in some way, right? So see what they already do and what they're comfortable with, we may be able to suggest some alternate things to make it a little more practical if they're having certain issues of finding certain things. But in the majority of cases, people have worked out where they like to have their things. Now, that's different, obviously, for someone who, who's maybe younger and not as organised and a bit more free spirit. So it's about, having a system where you keep your things and reliable to be able to locate it yourself, but then also others in the household or the organisation, if it's an office or that sort of a club or something like that, that things are placed and returned back to their original position. So, for instance, in our Cooperoo office, we have a particular room, the Maureen Davenport room, where the tables are arranged in a format. Sometimes we'll change that format, but it will always return to the original format. Yeah, and everything else is in its place, so that we know, and we let people know that we're changing for this occasion or this time, and then there will be a return. So a bit of preparation. Households, it's about looking at the your arrangement of the couches, furniture, coffee tables, and is it more practical just to look at an adjustment? Okay, so that again, where the combination of rugs and trip hazards and things like that come in, how you can more logically and safer arrange those bits of furniture or book coverings. Yeah? So again, ask the individual, but have a look at, and if support workers or cleaners, we always encourage them to, at bedside table, the individuals, all of us probably would have some sort of pattern where we have at our bedside table or in the bathroom, things that you use frequently are located in the same position or close to it as possible. Right?
That's a good point about the cleaner. I hadn't thought of that. Like, you think of immediate family, but yeah, you don't tend to think of the cleaner, but the cleaner could think they're doing the right thing and put something where they think it should go. But then the person with vision loss might spend the next week until they come back trying to work out where the heck they put that mashed potato or the potato masher or whatever it is that they need. So yeah, it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also like your kitchen, your pantry, having some organisation to that and a system. Because if you're by yourself and you want to be able to cook certain things, knowing where things are is a really good strategy. But also the appliances and things like that, where they are in regular spots and they go back to the regular spots. Dishwasher, remember, when you open the dishwasher, close it. Don't leave it open because it'll cut you off the shins. Yeah, so and overhead cupboards. Well, make sure you close it. Is what happens. People, boop, bang, they go. But if you're vision impaired or blind, the upper lower body protection is always a good strategy. If the message isn't getting across to the rest of the family, or if you're a youngster going, or someone at university going into the university student accommodation, because you're with a whole lot of people who are all studying and they're busy and they might forget this or that. So having a system, again, if you're at university, labelling your food in the communal fridge and things like that, and putting it in the safe spot, and working out that arrangement with the house house parent or house. I don't know what they call them now.
And I guess that could transcend to, like, a lot of our listeners are over 65. That could transcend to like living in an over 55s village, and they have a communal area where they all meet for coffee. So making sure that people are aware of that and setting up that environment right. And I guess talking to the management of that place to say, this isn't suitable, let's work out a way that it suits the person with vision loss as well.
Yeah, and look, people over 65, again, we will be used to routine. We're used to, so if it's an aged care facility, it's your room is your room. So, when people come in and clean, or they meals or whatever, then, there's a way, keep the order the way you've got it, unless there's a specific safety issue that we're, again, in consultation with the individual, work a solution, right? So, there are different complexities, but as a basic rule, it's about communication and just talking the person through it, and then everyone else in the loop, just being aware that there's, that's what's being worked out, and having a communication book. So all the stuff coming in,
Sorry, I can't hear you again, Bashir.
having a communication book so that other
Yes.
people in the person's life and interacting with them, they know you're not always having to by mouth repeat. You've got a record, a log, things that add to that capacity building. Yeah, so it is about capacity building. It's about maintaining it as well, practice, maintenance, and the dignity as well. Yeah.
Perfect. And the last question we have for today is, how can someone build trust and create meaningful connections with the people that they support?
The biggest thing is communication and talking to the individual, right?
Yeah.
Don't overpromise. Yeah. So be realistic about your abilities. And again, if you're volunteering with us, then keep in contact with your coordinator or whoever is in your area that you're working with. If you see things that, the individual's having difficulty with, some things you can help them immediately because it's part of the role of a volunteer. But then there may be other things that you will need to just liaise with us to, and then work with the individual to maybe offer some solutions and strategies to go along with that. But the most important thing is developing trust, and again, that regularity, that commitment is really important. Okay. Biggest thing, just relax.
Yeah,
Take
so
it
important.
easy. Yep, breathe. Yep, and talk.
Perfect.
That's it.
Now, a few people have asked for a copy of the guide. So apparently you would have recently received an email with the guide in it. If not, just go into your emails and search Vision Australia in your emails, and that should come up. At a worst case scenario, I've just put my email address in the chat box. So if you want one sent directly, I'm happy to send it to you or pass it on to my admin assistant, Nathan, who will be happy to do that for you. So feel free to do that. Or I think you can also email info@visionaustralia.org, and they should be able to just say you've been to a webinar and send it through just Simone or Liz, and we'll get it and support you and send that out to you. Now, Meg says, thank you, another great webinar. Thank you, Bashir. And while we're coming to the end of our webinar in the last couple of minutes, I just want to ask if anybody else has any questions they would like answered. If so, pop them in the chat now. I can see one coming through. I just joined and missed the presentation. Can I watch the recording? That is a good question. Yes, you can. It's all going to be put up on YouTube. Let me just get the link for you. I was sent that recently by a colleague. She's just sending it through now. So she's typing. Yes, so you can listen to the webinar today. All four webinars that we've done over the last 4 weeks will be available on YouTube. Just waiting for the link to come through, and you can rewatch all or any of those, and feel free to share it with your networks. Okay, Liz has just said an email will go out to you all on Wednesday with all the links. So yeah, keep an eye out on your inbox. You should receive an email. And like we said, if it doesn't go in your inbox, just check your junk mail. Perfect. Do you have anything that you'd like to add at the end, Bashir?
If you know anyone who has a vision impairment, who is blind, or you are actually low vision or blind in the audience, think about having a conversation, okay? It doesn't hurt, right? Talk about orientation mobility. All our staff members know about O&M, but in particular, if you want to explore that, then talk to an orientation mobility specialist and see what the possibilities are, where we can maybe help you to develop your goals and your strategies and comfort levels. So, it's again, like a gym. You don't know what the equipment is or what the strategies are unless you have a little bit of orientation and explore. And so be open to that and think positively. And don't forget, October the 15th every year is International White Cane Day. So it's not about celebrating the white cane, it's about celebrating the achievements of those people who use white canes to get around, be part of the community, be interactive, travel confidently and safely in different formats, whether it's with a guide under their own steam or a combination of all those different things. Okay, so international locality.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so that's something to keep in mind.
Perfect. And Caroline has written, thank you for such a good Zoom. I used my white cane and it gave me my life back. I'd love to talk to someone with visual neglect, which I have.
We talk to our orthoptists in the first instance, or occupational therapists. Orientation mobility can also come into that in terms of, how you move around and the strengths-based approach. So remember, we talk about what people can do rather than what they can't do, right? So this is about making the most of your abilities and experience and where you've come from.
That's so true. So I guess your first point of call is you can ring your local office if you have their number. If you don't, you can ring the main number, which is 1300 847 466, and just say you'd like to talk to someone in your local office about some orientation and mobility support, and they can link you in with the local O&M in that area. So that would be your first point of call. Kathy has said, is there a photo of how to do a sighted guide? Also, the volunteer guide is a podcast in the interview highlights feed. Okay, please send a photo. So I know that the Vision Australia, there's a guiding manual that has pictures in it, doesn't it?
It does. Yes, it does.
Yeah. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the first thing. You could email us and ask to have one of those guiding fact sheets sent to you. Or alternatively, you could probably just go on the Vision Australia website and just literally type in the search engine guiding fact sheet, and that fact sheet should come up for you. And it has pictures of different scenarios. So as Bashir was talking about, how to guide someone in a narrow space, how to guide someone to a seat, how to and what to do, what to say, how to start guiding, that type of thing with the pictures in it. So that would be really, really helpful for you. Talking about podcasts, we do have a lot of podcasts available through the Vision Australia Radio. So feel free to go on the Vision Australia website and you can type in, there's a few different ones. Mine of my favorites are the Nothing's Off Limits podcast. So that podcast talks about when I'm not blind enough and how to ask for help and how to navigate the things, those questions that you're a bit unsure of. So, how do I go to the gym if I've got vision loss? How do I date if I've got vision loss? All those questions that seem a little bit off limits to ask maybe your support worker. So yeah, that's called the Nothing's Off Limits podcast. You can just search that on the Vision Australia website. And there's also the Hindsight podcast where a few of my clients that are over the age of 65 have been interviewed about different scenarios within Vision Australia, about caring and having a support worker to help them. So, and also navigating, regional access. So lots of different podcasts. I'm pretty sure there's a website on the Vision Australia website. There's an actual, here it is, I've got it open now, called webinars, and you can just type in webinars and it'll have all the podcasts and webinars there, or go to Vision Australia Radio and search podcasts and they'll all come up there. And Caroline has another question. Okay, so she was the lady that was asking about the visual neglect. I would like to meet someone else with visual neglect to discuss with them the issues we face so you don't feel so alone.
You might be, if you haven't already, access our quality living groups.
Yes, perfect.
Right? So that's a good sequence.
Yeah. So you can access quality living groups. So quality living groups are groups, for those people that don't know, where they're hosted by Vision Australia's quality living team. So a professional from the quality living team will host those groups, and they will have a few people. So I think there's up to about 6 to 8 people within those groups, and they link you in with groups of people of a similar age to you that have a similar condition to you, and they navigate all the challenges that you may face in relation to that. And a lot of regions also have social groups. So I know Gosford has a lot of social groups in New South Wales, and there are certain regions that do have a lot of social groups. So just ask your local office and they'll be able to tell you what social groups they have at a particular office, and then they can link you in with face-to-face with people that may have a similar condition to you. Okay, and Caroline says, thank you for that. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Bashir. I've learned a lot today, so it's been really interesting. And yeah, it was great to meet you.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Bye for now.